May I have your attention, please? Welcome to the 14th International Seminar for Parliamentary Research Services. Please take your seat so we can begin on time. So please turn off your mobile phone or set it to the silent mode. And the seminar will begin in a moment. It will be conducted in Korean with English interpretation, so please use receiver in front of you. Channel 1 is for Korean, and Channel 2 is for English. Once again, for interpretation service, please use a receiver in front of you. Channel 1 is for Korean, and Channel 2 is for English. If you have any issues with your headset, raise your hand. Our staff will be helped right away. Thank you for your attention and cooperation. We'll begin the opening ceremony in a moment.
지금부터 제14차 의회조사기구 국제세미나 개회식을 시작하겠습니다. 안녕하십니까? 저는 오늘 개회식 사회를 맡은 국회 입법조사처 기획관리관 이형진입니다. 반갑습니다. 오늘 세미나에 참석해 주신 18개국 대표단 여러분, 제일 바쁜 국정감사 기간에 귀한 걸음을 해주신 이하경 국회 부의장님, 그리고 여기에 계신 내외 기빈 여러분께 진심으로 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 날씨가 갑자기 쌀쌀해졌습니다. 모두 건강 잘 챙기셔서 즐거운 한국 방문이 되기를 기대합니다. 개회식 순서를 간단히 말씀드리면, 먼저 기빈들과 각국 대표단의 소개가 있고, 이어서 이관우 국회 입법조사처장님의 개회사와 우원식 국회의장님의 영상 축사, 그리고 이하경 국회 부의장님의 환영사를 차례로 들은 후에 기빈들과 각국 대표단 모두가 기념 촬영을 하는 순서로 진행하겠습니다. 그러면 먼저 오늘 세미나 현장을 빛내주고 계시는 대한민국 국회의 기빈들부터 소개해 드리겠습니다. 먼저 이하경 국회 부의장님이십니다. 지동하 국회 예산정책처장님이십니다. 진선희 입법차장님이십니다. 박태형 사무차장님이십니다. 김상수 국회 운영위원회 수석전문위원님이십니다. 마지막으로 오늘 세미나를 주최하는 이관우 국회 입법조사처장님이십니다. 다음으로 각국 대표단 여러분을 소개해 드리겠습니다. 18개국을 알파벳 순으로 국가명을 호명하면 각국 대표단 여러분들은 일어나서 청중께 인사하여 주시기 바랍니다. 소개해 드릴 때마다 따뜻한 환영의 박수 부탁드립니다. Let me introduce each delegation in English. Delegation from Algeria. Delegation from Austria. Delegation from Cambodia. Delegation from Canada. Delegation from China. Delegation from Czech Republic. Delegation from EPRS. Delegation from France. Delegation from Germany. Delegation from India. Delegation from Italy. Delegation from Kyrgyz Republic. Delegation from Mongolia. Delegation from Nepal. Delegation from Pakistan. Delegation from Thailand. Delegation from Turkey. Lastly, Republic of Korea. 감사합니다. 다음으로 국회 입법조사처 이관우 처장님의 개회사를 듣도록 하겠습니다. 큰 박수로 맞아주시기 바랍니다.
네, 안녕하십니까. 국회 입법조사처장 이관우입니다. 제14차 의회조사기구 국제세미나를 위해 대한민국 국회를 찾아주신 각국 대표단 여러분을 진심으로 환영합니다. 국정감사로 바쁘신 일정에도 귀한 시간을 내서 자리를 빛내주신 이하경 국회 부의장님, 그리고 여러 내외 귀빈 여러분께도 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 지금 국회의장님께서는 해외 순방 중이신데 이탈리아를 방문하고 계십니다. 이탈리아 대표단께 특별한 감사를 드립니다. 국회 입법조사처는 2010년 이래 의회조사기구 간의 교류 협력을 위해서 매년 이 국제세미나를 개최해왔고 올해로 14번째를 맞이하게 되었습니다. 이제 이 국제세미나는 세계 각국의 의회 지원기구들이 함께하는 교류와 협력의 장으로 발전했고 실질적인 입법 지원 경험과 지혜를 나누는 국제 네트워크의 구심점으로 자리 잡았습니다. 올해 세미나는 기후위기 대응을 위한 입법정책 동향, 그리고 불평등 완화와 의회의 역할을 주제로 인류의 생존을 위협하는 도전, 그리고 사회 통합을 가로막는 격차에 대응하는 의회의 역할을 모색하고자 합니다. 기후위기는 탄소 중립의 달성, 재생에너지의 확대, 녹색 산업으로의 전환 등 사회 전체의 변화를 요구하는 중대한 과제입니다. 따라서 정부의 정책과 의회의 입법이 긴밀히 조화되지 않으면 실효성 있는 대응을 하기가 어렵습니다. 불평등 역시 전 지구적 차원의 문제입니다. 소득, 자산, 교육, 보건, 성별, 세대 간 불평등이 인류의 지속 가능한 미래를 위협하고 있습니다. 불평등은 특히 민주주의의 신뢰 기반을 약화시켜서 인류 공동체의 연대 정신을 흔들고 있습니다. 이런 문제들에 대해서 각국의 의회 그리고 의회 조사기구가 과학적 분석을 바탕으로 실질적인 입법 대안을 제시해야 합니다. 이것이 오늘 우리가 함께 모인 이유입니다. 여기에 더해서 우리 모두가 함께 고민해야 할 조금 큰 문제의식도 던져보고자 합니다. 오늘날의 세계를 보면 대단히 암담합니다. 지난 25년 전 새로운 밀레니엄이 시작되었을 때 인류는 큰 희망을 가지고 있었습니다. 반세기 이상 지속된 냉전이 끝나고 평화가 지속되었고 핵무기가 줄어들었습니다. 민주주의는 확산되었고 세계의 경제가 성장했습니다. 인터넷과 물류의 확대로 지구의 연결성이 어느 때보다 커졌습니다. 오존층 파괴와 같은 지구적 문제도 함께 해결했습니다. 인류의 미래가 밝아 보였습니다. 그런데 4반세기가 지난 지금 인류의 미래가 그 어느 때보다 어렵습니다. 2000년 이후에 전쟁으로 인한 사망자가 매 10년마다 2배씩 늘어나고 있습니다. 군사비로 쓰는 비용이 인류 역사에서 가장 많은 해가 작년이었습니다. 전 세계의 민주주의가 30년 동안 지속적으로 후퇴하고 있습니다. 시민들의 민주주의에 대한 신뢰가 계속 줄어들고 있습니다. 올해 제가 만난 한 학자는 인류가 멸망으로 향해 가는 둠스데이 북을 쓰고 있는데 아무것도 할 수가 없어서 무력감을 느낀다라고 말했습니다. 이러한 인류 문명의 후퇴는 대체로 스트롱맨의 등장과 관련이 있어 보입니다. 전 세계적으로 기존의 정당 정치와 의회 정치가 실패하면서 포퓰리즘적인 정당과 지도자들이 분쟁과 갈등을 조장하고 있습니다. 과격한 언사와 급격한 정책 전환으로 문제는 해결하지 못하면서 혼란만 가중되고 있습니다. 이런 때에 국민의 대표인 의회가 균형과 안정을 잡는 역할을 해야 합니다. 이탈리아 르네상스의 정치사상가 마키아벨리는 공화정은 느리기 때문에 군주정보다 안전하다고 말했습니다. 로마의 집정관 파비우스 막시무스는 인내심을 가지고 지구전을 통해서 한니발의 공격을 물리쳤습니다. 쉬운 문제는 정부가 빨리 잘 해결하지만 어려운 문제는 의회가 해결해야 합니다. 지금이 그러한 시기라고 생각됩니다. 의회는 행정부보다 느리고 법을 만드는 일은 행정을 집행하는 것보다 그렇게 신나는 일이 아닙니다. 국민들은 국회의원의 말보다 공무원들의 서비스를 더 좋아하기도 합니다. 그러나 의회가 없으면 민주주의가 존재하기 어렵습니다. 의회의 핵심은 대화와 토론, 타협입니다. 그것 없이는 아무리 기술이 발전하더라도 인류의 문명이 얼마나 후퇴할 수 있는지 유튜브와 SNS의 알고리즘이 지배한 지금의 세계가 잘 보여주고 있습니다. 우리는 의회에서 대화와 토론을 복원시켜서 기후위기와 불평등은 물론 지금 인류사에 닥친 여러 어려움들을 함께 해결해 나가야 합니다. 이것은 의회를 뒷받침하는 우리 의회조사기구, 의회지원기구들의 역할이기도 합니다. 대한민국 국회 입법조사처는 앞으로 국제세미나를 단순히 형식적인 연례 행사가 아니라 각국 의회조사기구가 지속적으로 협력하고 공동의 해결책을 만들어 나가는 국제 네트워크의 중심으로 발전시켜 나가겠습니다. 이번 세미나에서는 한국의 문화와 전통을 직접 체험할 수 있는 특별한 일정도 마련했습니다. 오늘 저녁 사랑제 만찬에서는 퓨전 국악 공연을 감상하면서 한국의 멋과 흥을 느끼실 수 있고 내일은 국립중앙박물관을 방문하실 계획입니다. 최근 오징어 게임과 캐대헌으로 더 유명해진 한국 문화를 직접 경험하시면서 교류와 우정의 폭을 넓히시기를 바랍니다. 다시 한번 귀한 걸음을 해주신 대표단 여러분께 진심으로 감사드리고 이번 세미나가 인류 공동의 과제를 해결하는 국제적 의회 간의 협력에 기여하는 뜻깊은 계기가 되기를 바랍니다. 국회 입법조사처도 최선의 노력을 다하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 처장님 감사합니다. 다음 순서입니다. 국회 출장 중이신 우원식 국회의장님께서 저희 세미나를 위하여 영상 축사를 보내주셨습니다. 함께 영상을 보시겠습니다.
반갑습니다. 우원식 국회의장입니다. 제14차 의회조사기구 국제세미나 개최를 진심으로 축하드립니다. 각국 의회조사기구 간 연구 공유 및 협력 네트워크 구축이라는 목표 아래 뜻깊은 행사를 마련해 주신 이관우 입법조사처장님과 관계자 여러분께 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 각국 의회조사기구 대표단께도 진심으로 환영의 인사를 전합니다. 국제세미나는 2010년 시작하여 국제협력과 입법정보 교류의 중심축으로 자리매김해 왔습니다. 특히 올해 세미나 주제인 기후위기 대응을 위한 입법정책 동향과 불평등 완화와 의회의 역할에 주목할 필요가 있습니다. 대한민국 국회는 올해 초부터 입법조사처를 중심으로 기후위기, 인구위기, 불평등 문제 해결을 위한 여러 연구와 입법 논의를 이어왔습니다. 그러나 기후위기와 불평등과 같은 전 인류적 과제는 한 국가만의 노력으로는 해소되기 어렵습니다. 각국의 연대와 인류 공동의 지혜가 필요합니다. 이번 세미나를 통해 대한민국뿐 아니라 기후위기와 불평등 해결을 위한 각국 의회 조사기구의 지혜를 모으고 기관 간의 협력과 연대를 굳건히 다질 수 있기를 바랍니다. 대한민국 국회 역시 국민을 지키는 국회, 미래로 나아가는 국회라는 구호 아래 의회조사기구에 대한 입법, 정책 지원을 강화하여 기후위기와 불평등 해소에 앞장서겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다. 다음으로 이하경 국회 부의장님의 환영사 순서입니다. 국정감사 일정으로 지방에 가셔야 함에도 어렵게 시간을 할애하여 저희 세미나 현장에 참석해 주셨습니다. 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Good morning, everyone. 대한민국 국회 부의장 이하경입니다. 먼저 제14차 의회조사기구 국제세미나를 위해 대한민국 국회를 찾아주신 17개국, 17개국 대표단 여러분을 진심으로 환영합니다. 먼 여정에도 불구하고 귀한 시간을 내어 함께해 주신 모든 분들께 감사드립니다. 국회입법조사처가 2010년 처음 국제세미나를 마련한 이래 매년 그 의미와 무게가 더해지면서 이제는 각국의 의회조사기구가 경험과 지혜를 나누는 교류의 장으로 자리 잡았습니다. 처음 6나라에서 출발한 세미나가 17개국이 함께하는 국제적 교류의 장으로 발전한 것은 바로 여러분의 지속적인 관심과 성원 덕분입니다. 올해 세미나는 기후위기 대응을 위한 입법정책 동향과 불평등 완화와 의회의 역할이라는 주제로 열립니다. 기후위기는 인류 공동의 생존과 미래 세대의 삶과 직결된 의제이며 불평등은 사회적 연대를 훼손할 수 있는 구조적 위험입니다. 두 의제는 서로 다른 것 같지만 결국 지속가능한 발전과 사회 통합이라는 하나의 목표로 이어져 오고 있습니다. 오늘 이 자리에서 나눌 각국의 경험과 지혜가 실질적인 대안으로 이어지길 기대합니다. 이번 세미나가 각국 의회조사기구가 서로의 경험을 공유하고 지혜를 모으는 진정한 협력의 장이 되기를 바랍니다. 아울러 대한민국 국회를 방문하신 여러분께서는 이번 세미나를 통해 우리 문화와 정치를 함께 느끼시며 소중한 교류와 우정의 추억을 만드시길 바랍니다. 다시 한번 제14차 의회조사기구 국제세미나에 함께해 주신 각국 대표단 여러분을 진심으로 환영하며 여러분의 건강과 행복 그리고 세미나의 성공적인 개최를 기원합니다. 감사합니다.
네, 부의장님 감사합니다. 그러면 세미나를 시작하기에 앞서 기념 촬영을 하도록 하겠습니다. 내외 기빈 및 각국 대표단께서는 직원의 안내에 따라 단상 앞으로 나와주시기 바랍니다. 모두 앞으로 나와주시기 바랍니다. 네, 감사합니다. 개회식에 참석해 주신 내외 귀빈 여러분께 다시 한번 감사의 인사를 드립니다. 이상으로 제14차 의회조사기구 국제세미나의 개회식을 마치겠습니다. 그러면 세미나를 위해 잠시 장례 정돈을 하도록 하겠습니다. 제1세션은 오전 10시에 시작하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Now we will have a short coffee break, so you can enjoy coffee, tea, or light refreshments right outside, and we'll begin the seminar session 1 at 10 a.m.
하나, 둘.
Okay. 네네. Everyone, I hope you enjoy the coffee break. We will begin session 1 in 5 minutes. So please take your seats or make your way back to the hall, please. 일단은 먼저 나오라고 지금 시작을 조금 해야 될 것 같은데. 예.
아, 이 포인터는 저분들한테만 알려주세요.
그러니까 지금 주무관이 안내하는 거죠.
Everyone, we are about to begin the seminar 1 in a few minutes. Please make your way back to the seminar room. And for presenters and session moderator, please come forward to the stage for the session 1 presentation.
네, 지금부터 세미나 제1세션을 시작하겠습니다. 제1세션의 사회이신 김종훈 국회 입법조사처 경제산업조사실장님께 마이크를 넘기겠습니다.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to begin our opening session of the 14th International Seminar on Parliamentary Research Services. My name is Jong-hoon Kim, the Director of Economy and Industry Research Office at NARS, also to be in charge of this session. As a novice myself, I am truly honored to be here. And once again, on behalf of all of those of us at NARS, welcome and thank you for everybody for coming to this event. Please let me begin by introducing our colleagues who will open this session with their presentations and talks. We have this morning first Mr. Alexandre Gauthier from Library of Parliament Canada. He's the Senior Director of Legal, Social, Indigenous Affairs. And next we have Mr. Cengiz Çukur from the Grand National Assembly of Turkey. He's a legislative expert in the Department of Research Service. He's on my right. Oh, thank you. Thirdly, we have Ms. Gabrielle Guerrero Jimenez from l'Assemblée Nationale, France. She's the head of Cooperation and Bilateral Questions Unit over there. And we also welcome Ms. Galinda Wagner from the Parliament, Austria, Parliamentary Administration. She's the head of Legal, Legislative, and Research Services, on my right. Actually, last night we met her, and she told me that she came here for more than 3 times, right? So she's pretty much experienced. Well, let me introduce the next presenter. We have also Mr. Geza Ganbata from Mongolia. He's from the State General Chorale of Mongolia, and he's the head of Research Division of the Parliamentary Research and Development Institute, on my left. And we also welcome Ms. Janina Hühne from Deutsche Bundestag, Germany. She's a research associate from Research Section WD7, on the far right to me. And finally, Ms. Sally Gu from our own North Korea. She's the head of Environment and Labor team, on my far left. Okay, this session's topic is socioeconomic inequality. As we all know, and sometimes are acutely aware, we are living in a world of inequalities that come from a variety of discrepancies over not only income and wealth, but also health, education, and whatnot, based on gender, race, religions, provincialism, and etc. Although we all strive for better, healthier, happier life in our society, inequalities are not simply receding in uniform fashion. Rather, they have, from time to time, deepened with technological progress, economic growth, or with global changes and epochal trends of the times. And though with differing degrees among countries and societies, they linger on to the chagrin and frustration of legislators and policymakers across the world. In this seminar, particularly this session, we will discuss what could be done and be done more in order to alleviate inequalities in our society, focusing especially on what parliaments and legislative bodies can do in terms of policymaking, budgeting, and promoting solidarity across the board among our citizens. We'll also look into our shared cause and goals and experiences and knowledge. On top of parliamentary initiatives, hopefully we'll also be able to discuss parliamentarian cooperation and collaboration amongst us on this issue of inequality. Before we begin, there's just one more housekeeping matter before. Considering today's schedule, and just to be on the safe side for lunchtime, we'd better wrap up our session no later than 11:40. So I'm afraid I can give each presentation only 10 minutes or so. And there will be 2-minute warning from the floor, probably on your left side, I guess, from the stand. And questions and answers, henceforth, if there's any, would have to wait towards the end of all featuring presentations. So in case you'd like to chip in with this discussion, please keep it until the end of all our presentations. I'll try to save as much time as possible for your audience in the floor. Now, without further ado, let's welcome our first presenter of the day, Mr. Alexandre Gauthier, with warm applause. Mr. Gauthier.
Good morning. It's a good thing I'm going first because the jet lag picked up last night and I didn't sleep a lot. And just to make matters worse, I don't drink coffee. So I'm afraid you're going to find me maybe falling asleep by the end of the day. But I'll do my best for this morning. So I'll talk to you about gender-based analysis plus this morning. For some of you, you might know it more as intersectionality analysis. For some reason, we've always called it GBA plus in Canada, so that's why we use this terminology. I prepared something that's very short and practical. I realize that in 10 minutes we can't cover everything, but hopefully I'll get into some of the information that will lead you to some questions, and I'm hoping that we can have actually some discussions during breaks or during the meals, because I also came here to learn from your own experiences. So just a bit of background on GBA Plus in Canada. So the government of Canada started doing that type of analysis, I would say maybe 10 years ago or so. The only problem is that they don't necessarily do it systematically, and often it's not made available to the public. So for parliamentarians, they did not have access to this type of analysis, which is why at the Library of Parliament, we started doing GBA Plus 6 or 7 years ago. Now, GBA Plus is something that we try to incorporate to everything that we do at the library. So, for example, when we're preparing briefing notes for committee meetings, we expect that our analysts will incorporate GBA Plus, so that they will consider that whatever the policy or legislative measure that we are considering, that our analysts are going to consider the impacts that this might have on different groups of society. Another example is when we do research publications. When our analysts submit a proposal, in the form there is a section that they have to complete explaining how they will integrate GBA Plus as part of their publication. So just before I get into GBA Plus, something to know is, and I'm sure that's something that most of you already do, is whenever a bill is tabled in Parliament, we prepare a legislative summary. So that's something that we do usually pretty quickly, so that members of Parliament and senators have access to have a bit of context about what the bill is doing. And we also provide a summary, because some of those bills can be very lengthy, very complicated. So the hope is that by providing them with a short document of between 5 and 10 pages, they can have a better understanding of what the bill is doing. Now, 6 or 7 years ago, some parliamentarians started to ask us about GBA Plus, because in the legislative summaries, we don't necessarily go into the different types of impacts that the bill will have on different groups of society. So mostly senators, they started asking us for this type of analysis. So we started doing it more on an informal basis for some parliamentarians. But since it was getting very popular, we started doing those as internal publications. So while you can find our legislative summaries on our websites, you won't find our GBA Plus, because they are only available to parliamentarians. That said, if you are interested, I do have some copies. I would be more than happy to share some of those with you for your internal purposes. So to the extent possible, we do GBA Plus for all the bills at our tables. Now, realizing that in some cases, we may just not have the time, because if those are bills debated with urgency, we're talking about only a couple of days or some weeks. So in some cases, we may do something very, very short. But for the most part, we try to do a GBA Plus for every bill. As I was saying, so our GBA Plus are not public. That's something that we are working on, and hopefully in the years to come, that's something that we may make available publicly. Now, the challenge is that, well, we have so many resources and the timelines are very short. And for us to make something available to the public, we need to go through a rigorous editing and formatting process. And as you can imagine, this takes time. So in terms of the process itself, the GBA Plus, so what we do is we look at the different groups of societies and consider some factors that are historically the ground for discrimination. So we're talking about sex, gender, sexual orientation, religion, race, ethnicity, disability. We consider now, what's important to know is we are a non-partisan and neutral organization. So we're not there to provide information about is the bill good or bad, is it meeting its objective. It's really to provide members of parliaments and senators with the information that they need so that when bills are considered in committees, they have all the information to ask the questions to the government officials, to the witnesses, so that in time they may actually want to propose their own amendments because they have all the information about what the bill is doing for certain members of society. Now, one thing in Canada, we also put some emphasis on the impact that the bill could have on indigenous populations. Now, I realize that it may not be a reality for some or most of you, but in the Canadian context, it's extremely important. In terms, so I won't get into too much now, but as you can imagine, so we're considering, so I'll give you an example of a recent bill that was proposed to amend the Competition Act in Canada. That was as a result of the increasing prices for food, because there is a sense that there are some monopolistic practices in Canada. So our GBA Plus was looking at the different groups of societies and in terms of food insecurity, how this could impact, for example, people of different races. Based on age also, we noticed that there may be a difference in terms of food insecurity based on the age of the members of the population. So this is the type of information that we try to provide parliamentarians so that they can do their work as legislators, ask the good questions, and if they feel, they can also propose amendments in that regard. So you've got a bit of an example of how we do GBA Plus. So we obviously look at who this bill will impact, how it might be understood differently by different groups of society. And once we have this, we look for some data, and that's one of the big challenge with doing GBA Plus is often we don't have the disaggregated data that would be necessary to do GBA Plus analysis. So we work with different groups. An example is with indigenous populations, for example. Those are populations that historically have not participated as much in the census, and we don't have a lot of data. So often we have to go to the indigenous communities themselves to try to find the data. But I would say that this is the one big challenge if you're considering doing such kind of analysis, is the absence of data in many cases. And obviously, we present the analysis. As I said before, the most important thing is that we do it in a nonpartisan and neutral way. We also have some guidelines on using inclusive language. So in the way that we draft these documents, there are some guidelines to help analysts do that. And since I'm running out of time, I would explain that. So the one thing I would say is that we're putting a lot of emphasis on training for our staff. So we do, when people join the library, they have to take a number of courses on how to do GBA+. We have a portal with all the types of documents and tools that they need to do that kind of work. And we have a team dedicated to that type of expertise. So when an analyst who's never done GBA+ analysis and they find it challenging, they can go to their colleagues to help them with the process. So I'll leave it at that, and hopefully you'll have some questions or thoughts for me later today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goti. And thank you particularly for keeping time in frame. Not to mention showing no jet lag at all. Our next presenter would be from the delegation from Turkey, and Mr. Çukur. His topic would be titled as Towards Gender Equality. So now let's hear what he can say. Mr. Çukur.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear participants. My name is Cengiz Çukur, and I'm a legislative expert in Turkish Parliamentary Research Services. My department is social policy. And today I will present information about women's political participation in Turkey. And just slide.
Sorry.
No worries. And women's participation in political life is one of the key indicators of democratization and gender equality. Political participation means taking part directly or indirectly in political decision making, not only voting or being elected, but also joining political parties, campaigns, and civil society organizations, etc. Although global initiatives such as gender quotas and international agreements have helped increase women's participation in parliaments and governments, barriers such as gender stereotypes, cultural norms, and unequal access to resources still persist. Now I want to talk about the historical background of women's political participation in Turkey. The Republic of Turkey was founded in 1923 after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, and under the leadership of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, sweeping reforms transformed the country into a modern secular nation-state. Women gained equal rights in many areas, such as education and inheritance. In 1930, women obtained the right to vote and be elected in municipal elections, and by 1934, they gained full suffrage in general elections. In the 1935 general elections, 18 women entered parliament, first time in Turkish parliament's history, making up 4.5% of all MPs. Obviously, women's participation in politics can be examined in many areas. Since it's not possible to talk about all these areas in this presentation, I will only focus on 3 indicators. First of all, I will give information about women MPs in Turkish parliament, and secondly, women ministers in cabinets, and lastly, women mayors elected in local elections. Now, first of all, I will give information about women MPs in parliament. After 1935, the number of women MPs declined and stayed below 3% for many decades, and a rise began in the 1990s, reaching 4% in 1999 and 4.4 in 2002, and then doubling to 9% in 2007. Since then, women's participation has continued to rise, peaking at nearly 18% in June 2015 elections. However, after these elections, a government couldn't be formed, and elections were held again in November 2015, and there has been a slight decrease in women's participation rate. And then the rate of women MPs started to increase again in the 2018 and 2023 general elections, reaching 17.4% and then 19.6% respectively. Now I want to talk about the current situation in Turkish parliament. Today, following the 2023 elections, there are 118 women MPs out of 600, and corresponding to nearly 20%, the highest rate in Turkey's history, though still far from gender parity. And now, before giving information about the women ministers, I must point out an information about the first and only woman prime minister in our history. In 1993, Tansu Çiller became Turkey's prime minister, and she has served for nearly 3 years until 1996. Now, when we look at Turkey's ministers, since 1980, the number of women in cabinets has remained very low, usually just one or two ministers. After the 2002 elections, cabinet sizes decreased, but women's representation remained limited. And at this point, it's also worth mentioning that in 2018, Turkey transitioned from a parliamentary to a presidential system, abolishing the prime minister's post and making the president both head of state and government. After all, despite all these structural changes, although there has been a significant increase in the number of women MPs in parliament, this increase has not translated into more women in cabinets. Now I want to give some information about women mayors. I will only give information about the two results of the last two local elections held in 2019 and 2024. I can say that between these two local elections, there has been a significant increase in women's participation. At provincial level, from 10% to 16.7%, and at district level, from 2.7% to 5.4%. Although men still dominate mayoral positions, these results show gradual progress in women's political participation at the local level. Now, when we look at the global figures, first the Inter-Parliamentary Union's data, according to the IPU's 2025 data, the global average of women in parliaments is 27.2, and the Americas lead with 35.7, Europe follows with 31.7, and the Middle East and North Africa region has the lowest with 16.7%. And when we look at the OECD data, according to the average figures, women hold about 33% of parliamentary seats in OECD countries, and Turkey's rate remains below this average. And now I want to talk about the gender quotas in politics. Many countries apply gender quotas to increase women's participation and women's political influence. These are often introduced as temporary measures, but in most countries, they have become long-term strategies. There are three main types of quotas. First of all, voluntary party quotas set internally by political parties. Secondly, legislated candidate quotas required by national law. And thirdly, reserved seats, positions that can only be filled by women. And when we look at the gender quotas around the world, many countries have adopted some form of quota through constitutions, electoral laws, or party rules, which help to raise women's participation, though results vary widely. And now I want to talk about gender quotas in Turkey. There is no constitutional or legal quota in Turkey, but many political parties apply voluntary quotas. Some of them include quotas in their party bylaws. For instance, the Republican People's Party included quotas in their party bylaw, and on the other hand, the People's Democratic Party and the Justice and Development Party has just verbally announced quotas during the past elections. And lastly, I want to talk about other steps contributed to participation of women in Turkish politics. Since it's not possible to give information about all steps taken in this matter, I will give one or two examples for each heading. Firstly, legal steps. Many important steps have been taken in Turkey to increase women's political participation, especially since the early 2000s. One of the most significant steps is that Article 10 of the Turkish Constitution was amended to include that measures taken for women, children, and the disabled shall not be considered discrimination. This established a legal basis for positive discrimination. And secondly, about the institutional mechanisms, I will only mention the two important institutions about gender equality in Turkey. The Parliamentary Committee on Equality of Opportunity for Women and Men. This committee was established in 2009, and it reviews laws, monitors equality, and advocates for participation. And secondly, the General Directorate on the Status of Women is the main governmental body for promoting Gender Equality, which develops policies, conducts research, trains candidates, and collaborates internationally. And thirdly, about the international commitments, Turkey signed the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women in 1980 and ratified it in 1985. And also, Turkey endorsed the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action in 1995. Now, in conclusion, I must point out that achieving gender equality in politics requires not only increasing the numbers, but also ensuring that women have real influence in decision-making processes. Accordingly, the percentage of women in parliament does not reveal whether women exercise equal influence in political debates. It can be said clearly that globally women often have fewer opportunities than men to take up national leadership positions, such as presidents and prime ministers, speakers of parliaments, and presidents of legislative committees. And similarly, women who enter politics are often appointed to lower status duties or assignments. For example, in cabinets, women tend to be assigned ministerial portfolios such as family and children's affairs, social inclusion, and social protection, etc. While these are important issues, they are generally considered less powerful and prestigious than cabinet portfolios typically held by men, such as defense, finance, and foreign affairs. True transformation will happen when gender equality becomes a key value in political life and advanced by both women and men. And gender quotas alone are not enough. We need sustained efforts to challenge social and cultural norms and ensure full participation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Çukur, for your presentation and also for your sharing of Turkish story about women's participation in politics. So now let's move on to our third presenter, who's from France. Ms. Gabrielle Guerrero Jimenez will be also talking about gender equality and also the role of French National Assembly. Ms. Jimenez, do you have...
Thank you. No, I haven't. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, it is an honor for me to speak today at this conference on the role of Parliament in reducing equality. France attaches particular importance to this topic, and especially to equality between women and men. Through its action, the French National Assembly tries to make gender equality not only a principle, but a concrete reality, built day by day in legislation, in representation, and in the very functioning of the parliamentary institution. That is why we wish to share today some of the French perspective on gender equality, showing how Parliament can be both the reflection of social progress and the driving force behind transformation. I will first talk about the importance of equality in the French Republican legacy. As early as the 18th century, the philosopher of the Enlightenment challenged the privilege of the aristocracy, defending the idea of a society founded on the equality of citizens before the law. These ideas were decisive in the great transformation of the French society, the first of which was the French Revolution in 1789. Thus, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen proclaimed, men are born and remain free and equal in rights. 2 years later, the activist Olympe de Gouges wrote the Declaration of the Right of Women and of the Female Citizen, whose first article stated, women are born free and remain equal to men in rights. Under the Second Republic, in 1848, the principle of equality was enshrined in the national motto. Liberty, equality, fraternity became the official motto of France. And the principle of equality is today enshrined in the first article of our current constitution, which states that France shall ensure the equality before the law of all citizens without distinction of origin, race, or religion, and that legislation shall promote equal access of women and men to electoral mandates and elective offices, as well as to professional and social responsibilities. This makes the question of women's presence in Parliament particularly relevant, and since 2022, for the first time in the history of the French Republic, a woman has served as Speaker of the National Assembly. In 2024, also for the first time, 3 women were elected for the parliamentary position of Quaestor, who are the 3 members of Parliament in charge of the administrative running of the National Assembly. Regarding the Assembly's board, its election shall respect parity between women and men, according to the amendment that was included in the Rules of Procedure in 2014. This amendment showed the institutional will to feminize the leadership of the Parliament. And today, the Assembly's board is made up of 12 women and 10 men. In regards to representation, the figures are clear. In 1997, 10% of MPs were women. Today, they represent 36% of them. This progress is largely due to the Gender Parity Act of June 2000. This act introduced a principle of gender balance for parliamentary elections. Political parties that fail to present 50% of candidates of each gender must pay a financial penalty. After this institutional overview, I would like to share with you an issue that has recently occupied both chambers of Parliament, the last amendment to the French Constitution. In December 2023, the President of the Republic initiated a constitutional revision in order to enshrine in the Constitution the freedom to have recourse to voluntary termination of pregnancy. After its adoption by the National Assembly and the Senate, the constitutional bill was adopted by the Parliament convened in Congress with a large majority, 780 votes in favor, 50 abstention, and 72 votes against. Article 34 of the Constitution now states that the law shall determine the conditions under which the freedom guaranteed to women to have recourse to voluntary termination of pregnancy is exercised. France therefore became the first country in the world to enshrine the notion of abortion in its constitution. This constitutional amendment is symbolic of the latest parliamentary development regarding women's rights and gender equality. I would like, therefore, to give you a short overview of the latest legislative issues in this area, illustrating the vitality of parliamentary activities in it. A major draft bill is currently under examination and seeks to amend the criminal definition of rape and sexual assault by introducing the notion of absence of consent. According to the draft bill, consent for an intimate relation must be free, informed, specific, prior, and revocable, and assessed in the light of circumstances. It cannot be deduced only from the victim's silence or the lack of resistance. The objective is to avoid focusing only on the victims during the investigations and to ensure a closer examination of the defendant's behavior. The National Assembly and the Senate adopted the draft bill by broad consensus. Other significant acts have been adopted in recent years. In 2023, the Parliament passed a bill to strengthen women's access to high positions in the public administration. The Act's objective was to accelerate the feminization of managing positions. It established a 50% quota for women in appointments. In 2022, the Parliament voted a bill to democratize the sports area. It set a rule of parity for the governing bodies of sports federation. At the time of its adoption, only 2 women chaired an Olympic Summer Federation out of 35. In 2021, the Parliament passed a bill aiming at accelerating economic and professional equality within private companies. It introduced a progressive gender balance quota within executive bodies of large companies, with the objective of reaching 40% of women by 2029. This act also bound companies to publish a gender equality index, taking into account gender pay gap and gender differences in pay raises. These bills are prepared and and monitored by specific bodies. One of the main ones is the Delegation for Women's Rights and Equal Opportunity for Men and Women. An act of July 1999 established this delegation. It was the first parliamentary delegation of its kind. The delegation is made up of 36 members, and its responsibilities are to inform the National Assembly about government policy on equality between men and women, to monitor the implementation of laws in this field, and to issue recommendations. The work of the delegation has led to the creation of inquiry committees. And, for instance, this year, an inquiry committee was established to investigate violence committed in several cultural industries: movies, performing arts, fashion, advertising. It had 2 objectives: to provide an overview of the violence occurring within these industries and to identify the mechanism that enables such violence in order to establish responsibilities at all levels. The final report, published last April, set out 86 proposals aiming at preventing violence and promoting the emergence of a culture of respect. So the French experience shows that equality, and specifically equality between women and men, cannot simply be proclaimed. It must be built within the very framework of democratic institutions. The evolution achieved in recent years is essential, but also underlines that equality remains an objective that requires constant effort, and that we can always find new sources of inspiration. This is why exchanges between parliaments, such as the one taking place today, are so valuable. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jimenez, for sharing French perspectives on gender equality in many aspects, including French Constitution, legislative actions, and committee activities, and so on and so forth. As you may have noticed, we have 7 presentations to be done today, but up to this point we have done 3, and not coincidentally, all 3 have been about gender equality, and what is remaining would be somewhat on different subjects. As you may know, inequality is an issue that pervades in many aspects of every fields. So I think we're doing okay so far. So in my purview, I'm considering whether it might be a right time to pause a bit to collect some questions or receive questionnaires from the floor, because we are going to move on to somewhat different fields of inequalities after this. So would there be any questions from the floor? Okay. The delegate from Italy? Would there be any microphones available to you? We pretty much know every one of you by face, but once you're given microphone, it would be really kind if you just state your name and the country you're from and possibly your title. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Pier Francesco Ferrari. I work in the research department of the Italian Chamber of Deputies in the law department. I have a question for Mr. Gauthier. Thank you all for your presentations, very interesting. As regards the GBA, I just want to look further in the collection of data. Is it mandatory that all draft bills state their purpose in order to find the related data? And do you issue surveys in order, because you said in your presentation that you need to look for the consensus of the relevant stakeholders about the purpose of the intervention. And I wanted to know if you issue surveys and how long does it take to complete the process? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So no, we don't do that because often we may have only a couple of days or weeks to complete the analysis. So we rely on sources that are authoritative, that are reliable. So often, ideally, if the government has data, that's where we will start. Often there may be reputable organizations that have the data. As I was saying, there are some initiatives among indigenous communities to gather their own data, and we try to look for those when we look at the portion dedicated to indigenous communities. So the quick answer is no, we don't do the survey just because it's a matter of time and resources.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's one more question from the floor from a delegate from Cambodia. Okay.
Thank you for the moderator for very effective coordinations. And I'm from Cambodia and have a question to our presenter from France and from Turkey. Just wondering about the rise of the women, because the two countries have already done a great job for more than 100 years in the gender agenda. And I'm wondering, how is it, what are the challenges you already mentioned, but I'm still curious whether it's an external factor or internal factor that constrain the role of women in leadership, right? For example, presidency, prime minister, or president of the National Assemblies. In Turkey, you already have a rise in the leadership role of the woman, but then I see the percentage still minor, while a new country like Cambodia, the gender agenda is still very new, even trying hard. So what are the challenges? Is it the war, international environment, or is it the political power struggle between men and women in the country in terms of cultural perspective? Or is it the institutional challenges that constrain women from participating fully in the leadership, in power, in the leadership and politics? So the question is it external or internal forces that constrain women, and what can we do about it? Thank you.
Okay, which one of you would go first? Yeah, Mr. Chukush.
Okay. Thank you for the question. And I should say that I have already told you that the legal steps or other steps are enough for providing equality among women and men. However, there are the real problem is, the actual problem is the stereotypes, gender stereotypes, and maybe the culture. Actually, in Turkey, I think the women are not, some of them are not willing to be leaders or to participate in politics, but it takes time, I think, because culture changes in decades. So in time, I think, and since 2000 and since the beginning of the 21st century, I think there's a change among women. They want more to participate in politics, and maybe we can see in the figures also there's a change in the number of MPs, women MPs in Turkey. And before 2000 and in the 20th century, the rates were very low, but now after the 2023 elections, for example, the women MPs is nearly 20% in the parliament. So there's an increase in the willingness of women to participate in politics, I think, in Turkey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chukur. Now, Ms. Jimenez.
Thank you. I strongly believe in the force of the example. I think that the woman will see more and more MPs, more and more women in responsibilities, and it will seem natural to them. So I think that the example, the force of the example is very strong. I think also that, well, we had to impose quotas. So, and we can see 25 years after the first quota law in 2000 in France for the parliamentary election that we have a woman who is a speaker. So, you know, it took us the journey was 25 years from the first quota to having a speaker, a woman serving as a speaker. So it takes a long time. At the beginning of the quota in the legislative election, we could show, and the studies showed it, the political parties gave the unwinnable constituency to women. So it was 50-50, but the non-winnable constituencies were devoted to women. So now this is changing. And I think that to say a quick word about the next step, well, it will be, we had 2 prime ministers who were women, and now the next step for France is to have a woman as for president. we never had. And I think that, you know, there are many cultural, of course, barriers. For example, the sharing of the responsibility at home. You know, the political careers in France were, during many decades, for men, because at home there was a woman organizing the agenda and taking care of the children, the school inscription, the meals, and you know. And for women, it is very difficult to find a man ready to do this. You know, it's a model that doesn't exist much. And now also women are more and more educated, so they don't want to stop working when they have children because they want to have a career too, and they're inspired by the model I talked about. So it is also about sharing at home responsibilities. How can we manage? We have couples with 2 careers. It's an important challenge. So I think that it's both private challenge and public challenge, and showing a really will to feminize the institution leaderships, because it doesn't come naturally. Our journey was 25 years at Parliament.
Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. As you see, you know, gender inequality itself a long time and old issue itself is really hard to, you know, alleviate. Means inequality itself is really difficult problems that has to linger on no matter what you do, how hard you may try. Anyway, we don't have much time, so we'll have to move on. So in case you have any questions, any more questions and inquiries about gender inequality, we can just have to defer it. I'm sorry, but towards the end of the session. Why don't we just move on to our 4th speaker and a different topic. Thanks for waiting. Our next speaker would be Ms. Gelinda Wagner from Austria. She will be talking about the role of parliaments in reducing information inequality. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm very pleased to be here and to have the opportunity to give a presentation to this distinguished audience. In my presentation, I want to talk about an aspect of inequality that I consider particularly noteworthy when looking at the role of parliaments in reducing it, namely the information inequality. Before I start, please note that the first 3 slides contain some key facts about Austria, its political system, the Austrian parliamentary administration, that are meant for you for further reading in case you are not already familiar with that. So, before I start, with that said, the reason why I choose to talk about the important topic of information inequality, that the historical background and characteristics of the political system in Austria lead to particular circumstances in this regard. After World War II, the political landscape of Austria was dominated by two parties, the Conservative People Party and the Social Democratic Party, and for the first 25 years after World War II, and also some periods later on, these two parties formed a coalition and had to find agreements on most political issues. In this way, political decision-making in Austria has long been shaped by mechanism of concordance. In concordance democracies, political power is distributed among many different actors, including not only politicians and parties, but also associations and other representatives of society. Political decision-making in concordance democracies is thorough and inclusive, aiming at balancing the interests of various actors at the preliminary stage and ensuring that decisions are well considered and balanced. In Austria, employees and employers' organizations, the so-called social partners, consult the ministry's work in the drafting of bills, participate in joint working groups with the government, or send their experts to give statements in parliamentary committees. They are usually also well represented in the political parties and can therefore influence party policies. The social partners also play a central role in the collective wage bargaining negotiations for the collective agreement of different industry sectors. The picture on the slide, for example, shows this year's negotiations. And this brief insight into aspects of concordance in Austria might give you an impression of how some forms of decision-making in Austria involve coordination and negotiation between multiple actors, and that it may perhaps can sometimes give the impression that is a little bit chaotic and intransparent. And now you are maybe wondering, what does this have to do with information inequality and Parliament's role in reducing it? A lot, because despite these well-established participatory forms of decision-making that involve various actors, relatively little information is available, as many of these consultations are not conducted publicly. In this context, Parliament plays an essential role in providing information to MPs, the media, and the public as such. Out of conviction for a strong democracy, we understand Parliament not just as a legislative and controlling institution, but also as a communication center for democracy. This is why it is of utmost importance that everyone can rely and trust the information that parliaments provide. The Austrian Parliament administration offers a wide range of information on the Parliament's website, which works as a parliamentary encyclopedia. It includes up-to-date information on all initiatives for federal legislation and other parliamentary matters, but also more general information regarding parliamentarism and the political system as such. To further increase transparency, Parliament also offers comprehensive open data and different parliamentary aspects. Showcases demonstrate how data can be used to gain insights into parliamentary process. Last but not least, the inquiry service of the parliamentary administration responds to individual on-demand questions of the public. Together with Parliament's broad on-site program, This ensures that Parliament does not only provide information, but is also a responsive actor and point of contact for democracy-related questions. The Legal, Legislative and Research Services of the Parliamentary Administration offers in-depth information on topics that are relevant to Parliament from a legal, economic and political science perspective. We prioritize our topics on the basis of relevance and recency, and our services assist MPs and parliamentary party groups in their work and also provides the general public with reliable and easy to understand information. And let me stress this because the easy understand information is really a crucial point. Upon other things, our budget office, which is a part of the LLR, analysis of the budget and the impact legislative proposals may have on it, and it also offers interactive visualization of this state budget. The Budget Office presents budget data in a way that makes it more accessible to everyone, as its analysis offers compact information on complex decision-making processes that are not always easy to keep track of. It therefore plays an integral role in reducing information inequality and, at the same time, sparks new discussions and debates both in and outside of Parliament. As you may imagine, this often very complex analysis requires a lot of expertise and computational power. And of course, this not only holds true for the work of the Austrian Parliament, but also for all information products of parliamentary research services worldwide. Now, in times of digitalization, one might be tempted to ask, or most of us may have already asked ourselves, why can't we try to make things easier for us? Why can't we just let AI do this for us? And the answer maybe is because even if AI makes decisions, people still need information, perhaps even more so. And what we can see now is that the information landscape surrounding us gets messier each day as it becomes more and more difficult to distinguish generated content from real content. Media and information sources are becoming increasingly unreliable. Mis- and disinformation is a major challenge for all of us that will continue to grow. And therefore, it is also necessary to consider how this changing information landscape affects parliaments, not only, but also in their role as institutions that provide reliable and equidistant information. This means that we must think about how AI can be safely used while ensuring that reliable, high-quality information is still provided by parliaments. We are convinced that this is not an either-or question, as it is often perceived today. We believe it is possible to reap the benefits of AI while maintaining quality, security, and diligence. And only if this is the case, parliaments can bring some order in a messy world and remain as a credible source of information, and thus continue to play a key role in reducing information inequality. So please note there are some information about my contact details, and feel free to ask and write me an email. I'll be pleased to answer any question. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner, for sharing your presentation and also lead our attention to another important aspect of inequality, information inequality. As you may have noticed, we started all our discussion from Canada, North America, and moved on to Europe. So I think it's time to move to Asia. Our next presenter would be delegate from Mongolia, Mr. Geza Gambato from the state Great Khural of Mongolia. He will be talking about Mongolian legislature and inequality issue in political participation and economic development.
Thank you. May I have the pointer, please? Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Distinguished delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great pleasure and honor to address today at the 14th International Seminar for Parliamentary Research Services, organized by the National Assembly Research Service of the Republic of Korea. On behalf of the Secretariat of the Parliament of Mongolia and its Parliamentary Research Development Institute, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to NARS for the kind invitation and the excellent organization of this important seminar. This year's theme, the role of parliaments in reducing inequality, could not be more timely. Across the world, economic disparities, unequal access to education and healthcare, and gender gaps, erosion of democratic institutions continue to test the resilience of democracies. In this context, the role of parliaments is both crucial and unique. They not only legislate and oversee, but also symbolize society's commitment to fairness and equality and upholding the rule of law. Today, I will share Mongolia's recent experience, how the Mongolian parliament is working to reduce inequality through its legislative reforms, institutional innovation, and policy making. In the 2024 parliamentary elections, Mongolia witnessed an event that opened a new chapter in the history of its democratic development. Following constitutional amendments, the number of parliamentary members increased from 76 to 126, thereby expanding the scope of representation in the parliament. Beyond this numerical change, it was a qualitative reform aimed at ensuring citizens' right to representation more equitably and reflecting diverse opinions. In the new composition of parliament, women's representation increased from 15 to 25%, which is a historic advancement in gender equality. And yes, this number must continue to increase. For the first time, representatives with disabilities were also elected from major political parties, fostering a new culture of inclusiveness and equal participation. This has enabled Mongolian parliament to genuinely incorporate the voices of different segments of society. These positive results materialized thanks to the introduction of a mixed electoral system within the constitution, which allowed smaller parties and new political forces to gain representation in the parliament, thereby creating fairer conditions for competition. Now, 78 members are elected through a majoritarian system, and 48 members are elected through a proportional representation system. The primary effects of establishing electoral norms at a constitutional level are the stabilization of electoral integrity, protection of electoral norms from being altered to serve vested interests, and overall protective measure for the democracy. Thanks to the recent constitutional amendment, the effective number of political parties increased from 1.5 to 2.5, which is a significant shift and improvement in a more equal representative in the legislature. Currently, our parliament has 8 standing committees. The parliament has recently re-established the Committee on Petitions, which enables more direct access of citizens to the legislature. In 2022, we have signed Memorandum of Understanding with the Interparliamentary Union to foster our collaborative initiatives aimed at fortifying the assurance and protection of human rights and gender equality. Subsequently, we have become the first parliament and the parliamentary secretariat to conduct self-assessment on human rights issues using the toolkit developed by the Interparliamentary Union in collaboration with the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights and other institutions. In its recent strategic plan, the Parliament reaffirmed its core values of transparency, openness, inclusivity, and citizen participation. The strategic plan introduces the 3 pillars of excellence initiative, which promotes, first, human-centered legislation, and clear and coherent legal frameworks, and laws that address real social needs, all aimed at enhancing human rights and reducing inequality. A comprehensive legal review has already identified 400 provisions across 300 laws that may conflict with constitutional rights. Addressing these inconsistencies will make Mongolia's legal system fairer and more coherent. The Parliament also instructed the government to review and streamline about 350 regulations that exceed legal authority, ensuring consistency and rule of law. This reform marks a shift from state-centered to people-centered lawmaking, and amendments to the law and legislation now require that all draft laws fairly represent the rights and legitimate interests of all affected parties. Lawmaking is becoming more participatory, evidence-based, and responsive to citizens' needs. In recent years, the Parliament is striving towards openness and transparency through the Deep Parliament digital platform. Anyone from any corner in Mongolia can now submit petitions and have them resolved, marking the beginning of a new culture of equal participation. In line with this, Parliament launched the Open Parliament 2025 program, which involves citizens, students, journalists, and the elderly in legislative activities, serving as a concrete example of participatory equality. The program includes traineeship possibility for university students to work within the Parliament, visiting tours in the Parliament for school kids, debate platforms, and involving knowledgeable and experienced elders in the activities of lawmaking. This is the Parliament's one of the main channels to enhance citizen participation in the Parliament. An important step has been made in the Mongolian Parliament. Now, the autumn session of the Parliament starts a month earlier than before, with an expanded 5-stage deliberation process on approving the state budget. This allows deeper scrutiny of state budget and broader consultation with experts and constituents, strengthening both inclusivity and accountability in lawmaking. Furthermore, the Parliamentary Research and Development Institute was expanded into an independent and autonomous institution last year, ensuring evidence-based decision-making and confirming that legislation is being directed toward reducing inequality. Now, let me briefly highlight 3 major initiatives through which the Parliament of Mongolia has addressed different dimensions of inequality. First, regional development policy. Mongolia has a long-faced challenge of internal migration towards the capital city, where more than half of the population now resides. Rapid urbanization has created overcrowded districts, housing shortages, and unequal access to services, deepening the divide between the capital and the countryside, and also divide within the capital city, where the income gap is becoming more serious. To counter this, the concept for regional development of Mongolia, approved last year, divides the country into 7 development regions. Each region now has clearly defined economic roles and social priorities. By decentralizing investment, improving regional infrastructure, and promoting diverse industries such as green manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, and logistics, this policy seeks to generate quality jobs and balance opportunities across the nation, not only in the capital city. In essence, it aims to reduce spatial inequality and enable citizens to prosper in their home regions, a concrete example of intra-generational equality. Now, the second, the law on the National Sovereign Wealth Fund of Mongolia establishes a comprehensive framework for managing the nation's mineral wealth more responsibly and transparently. It creates 3 main funds: the Future Heritage Fund, the Accumulation Fund, and Development Fund. Together, they ensure that revenues from natural resources are invested, saved, and distributed sustainably, benefiting both current and future generations. By embedding strong governance and oversight mechanisms, this framework transforms finite subsoil wealth into a long-lasting source of real and impactful prosperity and financial stability, which is essential for a natural resource-dependent, landlocked country. It is Parliament's instrument for promoting intergenerational equity, ensuring that today's growth becomes tomorrow's opportunity. And thirdly, the framework on principles for process re-engineering in public services adopted by Parliament this year outlines a comprehensive reform to make public administration more efficient, transparent, and citizen-centered. It requires all levels of government to redesign service delivery, elimination of duplication and bureaucracy, and simplify administrative procedures by adopting digital systems and especially for rural residents and vulnerable populations. In this way, the initiative reduces procedural inequality, addressing the hidden costs of poor governance, such as time, distance, and loss of opportunity, and guarantees that every citizen, regardless of income or location, can access state services more equally. Before I conclude, I would like to highlight our role of the Parliamentary Research and Development Institute, which supports the Parliament in achieving evidence-based and inclusive lawmaking. Our institution functions as an independent, impartial research arm of Parliament. Its main goal is to strengthen the quality of legislation through research policy, research analysis, and expert recommendations grounded in data and comparative experience. By doing so, it ensures that parliamentary decisions are guided by objective evidence rather than political bias. Beyond research, the Institute provides training and capacity-building programs for both parliamentary staff and citizens, aiming to improve public understanding of legislative processes and to foster informed civic participation. It also maintains a comprehensive parliamentary library and knowledge hub, which serves legislators, researchers, and the public with access to legislative documents, studies, and international best practices. Through these activities, our institute works to make the Parliament not only a lawmaking body, but also a learning institution, one that listens, studies, and innovates for the public good. It embodies the principle that stronger knowledge leads to stronger democracy, and that effective parliamentary research is an essential tool for reducing inequality through better policy design. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kanwathar, and thank you for your presentation. It seems now clear to me that no matter where you live, and no matter which country you are, it seems like all of us are kind of sharing and having the same issues and thinking about same problems. So why don't you just now move on to our next speaker, who's from Deutsche Bundestag, Ms. Janina Höhne. She's been waiting so long. Thanks for waiting. And she will be talking about reducing inequality to strengthen democracy. Janina, do you have?
Yeah, could you pass me the remote?
We are cooperating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, and thank you again for our Korean colleagues for inviting us and giving me the chance to speak on the role of the German Parliament and administration in reducing inequality to strengthen democracy. Let me preface this by saying that the Parliament administration is not part of the legislative wing, so it administrates the inner workings of the Parliament and especially the research service researches and gathers information for the parliamentary delegates for them to support them to then find compromises and pass laws. But inside the administration, one of the main objectives is also to tackle the inequalities, especially for the employees inside our administration. So let me first give an outline of the areas of inequality that I will be referencing, since this is such a broad term, and so I want to give you an idea of which areas of inequality I will be speaking on. So there's the economic inequality, gender-based inequality, which we heard of a lot today, then the inequality because of sexual orientation or racial and ethnic backgrounds, then the educational inequality, and health and climate inequality. And I will be giving an outline on the solutions that the German Parliament administration has found to tackle these kind of inequalities. So first, I want to speak on the kind of employment we practice at the German Parliament. So the German Constitution forbids the discrimination based on inequality, but especially for employees of the German state, which are called civil servants. They have a special status in the German Constitution in Article 33, which tells about the structure and the status of the employment, which is on a constitutional level. So this is a unique way of employment to ensure that the civil servants are neutral and independent. These come with various guarantees, but also duties of the civil servants. So first, the civil servants have the duty of the loyalty and political neutrality, but also the state is obligated to provide for its employees. So if the employees lose their ability to work or become sick, the state still has to provide for their employees. We also have standardized pay grades for all of our employees, so there are no negotiations, so it is ensured that everyone is paid the same, especially in every pay grade, everyone is paid the same. Also, the constitutional level guarantees a strict prohibition of discrimination based on any of the factors I've referenced earlier. Also, the career advancement is then based on transparent and equally applied criteria. And also, our state employees have the right to unionize, and all of the employees benefit from the collective agreements that are found, regardless of their membership in the union. In Germany, we believe that the parliamentary work works as a role model for everyone in Germany. So as the center of democracy, the parliament has the responsibility to lead by example and show in this especially topic that tackling the inequality and reducing inequalities strengthens democratic institutions. So I want to give a few examples of initiatives that the German Parliament administration has introduced to tackle these inequalities inside the administration. So first, we have introduced an equality commissioner. She is, right now it's a woman, so she is independent of the human resources management, and she is responsible for implementing an equality plan and then monitoring if this equality plan is also complied with inside the administration. Secondly, we have introduced two programs that are focusing especially on young people that started to work in the parliament. One is the mentoring program and one is a peer-to-peer coaching. The mentoring program is an exchange between an experienced mentor and a mentee, so the mentee can work from the more experienced perspective of the mentor. And also the peer-to-peer coaching is an exchange between two colleagues at the same level, so they can discuss their special problems and their challenges at the start of their career. We also offer free childcare for every employee of the parliament. We have an on-site kindergarten, which is very close to each office that the employees of the German parliament work at. We also have very flexible working hours and also offer 1 hour less of working hours for employees that have children under the age of 12. We also have an inclusion commissioner at the German parliament, which is representing the matters of disabled employees. He works as a connection between the human resources management and the disabled employees that can come to him and tell him about various challenges they face in their work. We also newly implemented an office for climate protection and sustainability to further our rules for implementing a sustainable work environment and to further the initiatives against the climate change. And lastly, for economic support, we also separation or relocation allowance, which is if you have to move for your work for the German parliament or have to travel between various cities, you get a separation or relocation allowance. And also we offer housing assistance. So if employees struggle to find affordable houses in the city that they're working at, they are being supported by the German Parliament to find affordable housing. In conclusion, we believe that these examples can lead to more equal and inclusive work environment throughout Germany, because if the German Parliament complies with its equality rules, then we hope and we believe that the rest of Germany will do so too. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hoena, for sharing German examples of parliamentary actions, showing how they move on with actions in terms of showing equality. So, and also for keeping your time. So we have only one presentation left, and it's only fair to come back to the hosting Korea. And our own Sally Koo from NARS will be talking about the efforts the Korean National Assembly has been putting in terms of addressing inequality. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor to be here with you today. My name is Sally Koo, and I serve as the head of the Environment and Labor team. I also act as the manager of the task force on inequality issues within our organization. Today, I will be presenting on the efforts of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea on addressing inequality. With your kind understanding, I would like to deliver my presentation in Korean to ensure accuracy and clarity of the content. Thank you very much for your patience. Please use your device. 네, 발표 순서는 다음과 같습니다. 먼저 불평등 문제와 관련된 배경을 말씀드리겠습니다. 왜 우리는 불평등에 주목했을까요? 과거 한국 전쟁의 영향으로 우리 사회는 빈곤했지만 상대적으로 평등한 상황이었습니다. 또한 한국 사회는 무척 빠른 속도로 경제 발전을 이뤄 나갔습니다. 그 과정에서 다소 불평등이 심화됐지만 불평등 완화 그리고 계급 상승에 대한 사회적 기대가 존재했습니다. 그러나 현재는 한국 사회가 예전과 달리 저성장 시대에 진입했고 저출생, 고령화와 같은 인구 구조의 문제도 발생하고 있습니다. 즉 이제는 성장 그리고 경제적 발전에서 분배와 사회 정의로 문제의 초점이 옮겨가는 시점이 된 것입니다. 한국의 불평등 현황을 보시겠습니다. 먼저 가처분 소득의 진위 계수 추이입니다. 보시는 바와 같이 소득의 불평등도는 조금씩 감소하고 있습니다. 다음으로 순자산의 진위 계수 추이입니다. 소득과 달리 자산의 불평등도는 증가하고 있습니다. 그럼에도 불구하고 한국의 불평등 수준은 다른 나라들과 비교해 보았을 때 아주 높은 편은 아니라고 평가되고 있기는 합니다. 그런데 한국 사회의 구성원들의 인식을 살펴보면 불평등 문제를 굉장히 심각하게 생각하고 있다는 것을 알 수 있습니다. OECD에서 경제적 불평등에 대한 시민들의 인식을 조사했는데요. 경제적 불평등이 감소되어야 한다고 생각하는 사람이 한국에서는 10명 중 8명으로 27개국 평균보다 높았습니다. 소득과 자산의 불평등이 심각하다. 생각하는 사람도 27개국 평균은 50%였지만 한국 사람은 70%에 달했습니다. 이것은 한국 국내에서 불평등과 공정성에 대한 인식을 조사한 결과입니다. 경제 양극화의 정도가 심각하다고 생각하는 사람이 81.5%, 우리 사회가 공정하지 않다고 생각하는 사람이 절반 이상인 56.6%로 조사되었습니다. 모두 아시다시피 불평등을 완화하는 것은 사회 갈등의 원인을 해소하고 지속 가능한 사회 발전을 위해서 꼭 필요한 과제입니다. 또한 이 문제는 정치적 이념이나 입장을 넘어서는 우리 모두의 공통된 문제입니다. 그래서 우리 국회는 불평등 완화를 국가적인 우선적 과제로 인식하고 2025년 국회 소속 기관들, 즉 국회 입법조사처, 국회 예산정책처, 국회 도서관, 국회 미래연구원이 함께 연구하는 공동연구과제로 선정하였습니다. 공동연구과제가 되면 다른 연구 주제들보다 우선적으로 예산이나 인력을 활용할 수 있게 됩니다. 또한 각 기관이 전문성을 가진 분야를 담당하기 때문에 더 풍부한 연구를 할 수 있습니다. 그러면 공동연구의 내용을 소개해 드리겠습니다. 먼저 저희는 불평등의 측정 방법을 개선하고자 노력하고 있습니다. 국회 입법조사처는 한국보건사회연구원과 함께 기존 측정 방법의 단점을 보완하기 위한 연구를 실시하였습니다. 기존의 불평등 지수들은 단편적이고 분절적이라는 한계가 있습니다. 따라서 다차원적인 접근을 위해 소득, 자산, 건강, 교육을 통합적으로 고려하는 지수를 개발하고 있습니다. 이를 통해 국회의 입법적 결정을 돕는 불평등 지수를 마련하고자 합니다. 현재는 연구가 마무리되어가는 단계입니다. 다음 주에는 바로 이곳에서 연구 결과를 가지고 주요 정당들과 공동으로 세미나를 개최할 예정입니다. 연구 결과에 대한 전문가들의 의견도 듣고 불평등 이슈에 대한 국회의 인식을 제고하는 기회가 될 것으로 기대하고 있습니다. 그동안 입법조사처는 다양한 기회를 통해 불평등 문제에 대한 의견을 듣고 공감대를 형성하려는 노력을 해왔습니다. 오늘의 이 자리도 그중 하나입니다. 지난 4월에는 국내 21개 학회가 이곳에 모두 모여서 각자의 전문 영역에서 불평등의 문제를 진단하고 해법을 공유하는 국가비전 입법정책 컨퍼런스를 개최했습니다. 8월에는 한국은행과 불평등 공동연구를 위한 MOU를 체결했습니다. 그리고 오늘 이 자리에서 불평등 완화를 위한 의회의 역할에 대한 세계 각국의 경험을 서로 나누게 되었습니다. 저희는 올해 안에 불평등 완화에 대한 국회 소속 기관들의 공동연구 결과 보고서를 발간할 예정입니다. 보고서에는 각 기관의 전문성을 살려 다양한 정책 제안들, 인구 구조와 불평등의 문제, 불평등 완화를 위한 재정적 방안 등을 포함하고자 합니다. 국회 입법조사처는 앞으로도 불평등 관련 연구와 불평등 지수의 관리를 지속해 나갈 것입니다. 마지막으로 이 자리를 빌려 저희가 연구 과정에서 직면한 한 가지 도전 과제에 관한 이야기를 하고자 합니다. 불평등 지수를 개발하는 과정에서 저희는 개인정보 보호를 이유로 행정 데이터를 충분히 구득하기가 어려웠습니다. 또한 아까 캐나다의 사례와 비슷한데요. 신뢰할 수 있는 데이터가 애초에 존재하지 않는 경우도 있었습니다. 예를 들면 부동산의 실제 거래 결과를 개인별로 반영한 자료나 금융자산에 관한 자료 같은 것이었습니다. 그래서 저희는 이 문제를 개선하는 것도 저희 연구의 중요한 역할이 될 것이라고 생각했습니다. 익명 처리된 행정 데이터에 대해서는 정책 연구를 위한 사용을 보다 용이하게 하고 꼭 필요하지만 존재하지 않는 데이터를 생성하는 것, 이런 것들은 불평등에 관해서 정확한 데이터에 기반한 정확한 진단 그리고 효과적인 개선 방안 마련을 위해 필수적입니다. 국회는 이를 위한 법률적, 제도적 개선 노력을 해나갈 것입니다. 지금까지 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sally, for your presentation. So now we have slightly more than 10 minutes. I've been very successful as a moderator, I think. But to be honest with you, I've never been such a good moderator in my past. So it must have been thanks to all of you colleagues on the podium now. Anyway, without further ado, why don't you just take questions from the floor in the audience. If you have any questions regarding all the presentations you've heard and all the ideas and thoughts shared so far. Well, my stomach's been growling for the past 30 minutes, so it's a test of patience now. But still, we have about 10 minutes, so in case of you any question, you can just raise it. Or have we done all the questions in the first half? Maybe I should have given you some break to stretch your legs in the middle. But any questions? Okay, I've been watching you because I didn't give you a chance to ask questions. Can somebody pass microphone? Thank you.
So, thank you for giving me an opportunity. And the first question is addressed to Turkey, my delegates. So that you spoke about the women's participation in your country. So that is a good indicator that the statistics has grown up. So I just want to know one more thing, that how enabling situations are being created in your country to attract and rather invite women's participation into politics. Say, for example, if you allow young students in their colleges and universities to effectively participate in political process, say in the form of students' union. Of course, we have seen the situation back in Nepal and some other countries about the Gen Z. So what is your view on that? How do you encourage all those students to take up active politics in the student life while pursuing their studies, so as to creating an enabling atmosphere to provide them a suitable platform later to come up and join active politics? That is one aspect. And the other aspect to our Bundestag colleague, that is regarding the loyalty of civil servants that you spoke of while your discussion. So that part, civil servants are part of the government, right? So the government means the executive. So whichever government or executive comes to power, they will, in essence, will try to negotiate with all the civil servants to frame the policies and to ask them to act accordingly. So in that situation where there is a robust majority in the form of a government, how these civil servants are negotiating with maintaining their neutrality as well as keeping their political bosses happy. So there are two questions to gentlemen and ladies. Thank you very much. I hope you will answer.
So why don't you just go with the first question with, Mr. Kuchir?
Thank you for the question. I think you want to learn about what we do to encourage students, the young people in Turkey, to enter politics or increase their rate in politics, I think.
Yeah. Well, while I said students, that means the women students, yeah.
Especially women students, yes, I understand. Well, actually, as a modern state, in our education system, starting with our education system, as far as I know, there are, in our curriculum in education, in the lessons, in schools, there's a part about political participation, as far as I know. We teach the children, the students, that the importance of taking part in politics in education system. And for example, I remember that as the Turkish Parliament, a few years ago, we visited many universities. 2 or 3 delegates to each province, each city, to the universities, and we have given seminars about our parliament, our research services, and this also helped to maybe the students wanted to learn more about politics, the parliament. So, what else I can say?
No, that is enough. This is in our Mongolian counterpart also said, because this research service in Mongolia, as he rightly said, capacity building as well as outreach. That in Indian Parliament we also do. So we outreach, we move out to student communities, far off places in different states of our country, and we encourage them to interact actively and to learn about the political processes, so that an enabling atmosphere may be created in the country, so that the young people join politics, young people, while I say that, including of the women. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam, your turn.
did I understand your question right? So you wanted to know what role the research services play in the government's decisions? Or?
Exactly.
Okay. So exactly, the research service is a service for the parliamentary delegates. So the delegates can ask questions to the research service. As for example, our section handles civil and criminal law and media law. So if they have the question on that topic, they can ask us, and we research it and give them an overview and answer their questions. And with that question, they can then discuss inside of the parliament and decide on laws. So we don't take a political position, but we do it neutrally, just according to the law. We research the questions and try to support them in finding their compromises.
Right. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other questions from the floor? Okay, over there, back in the back aisle.
My name is Jung-Gi-an. I work as a legislative researcher at the National Assembly Research Service of Korea. I would like to ask a question to the speaker from Canada. Your presentation mainly focused on explaining the concept and process of GBA plus itself, so it is difficult to tell how well it has been working in practice. I was wondering whether GBA plus has actually been effective in improving legislative outcomes. Could you share any good examples or success stories?
Okay, Ms. Gauthier.
Yes, thank you. It's a good question. So we do surveys with parliamentarians. So after we provide the documentation, we ask questions about how useful it was. So we do have some qualitative information that it is useful. That said, it is difficult to make a connection, a causal connection between what we do and the impact. Although we do have a lot of anecdotes of points and questions raised by senators and members of parliaments as a result of the analysis that we provide, so that the government often will have to make some amendments on their own, or the members will provide their own amendments at the committee stage. So I'm not giving you a very satisfactory answer because we don't have clear data that would demonstrate if it's working or not. But we do have the qualitative data that says that yes, it is working. And the fact that more and more parliamentarians are asking for this type of information is an indication that this is useful for them in their work.
Okay, there's one more question from the floor.
My name is Parvez from Pakistan. I have a question from all my colleagues. How many researchers in all your respective parliaments, what is the number of researchers?
You're putting question to whom?
From all participants.
Oh, all of us?
How many numbers? Yeah.
How many numbers
of research officers or research staff in your respective parliaments?
Okay, why don't I just start with Korean case? We have about 120 researchers in our research service department. If that was your question, right? The size of your institution or organization, maybe that was the question.
For Germany, I'm not really sure, but I would think about 50 to 60 researchers, just legal researchers, and then there's other staff, but yeah, around 50, I would say.
Ma'am, in Australia?
About 20, 21 to 22, yeah.
And what about Turkey?
In Turkey also, very similar to Germany. I'm not sure about the exact numbers, but around 50, between 50 and 60, I guess.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So our research service is comprised of 150 employees. 110 of them are qualified as researchers.
Yes, at the French Parliament, the research is done within the standing committees. So part of the teams of the standing committees are for legislative duty, and the other part is for research duty. But sometimes they switch according to the amount of work. So I would say that within the standing committees, 150 people work for both duties.
So in Mongolian case, our institute is composed of more or less 50 employees, and out of which more than 23 or 24 are the researchers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. If you have any more question, then I wouldn't allow it because it's almost time and my stomach and my legs are not allowing it. So, well, it's been an enjoyable session, at least to me. I hope it would be also to you. I noticed lots of nodding of heads through the session, right? And thank you again for all the presenters for their contribution. And let's give them a big hand of applause one last time. So this is the end of the first session, and thank you personally for bearing with this clumsy moderation. I hope everyone enjoy your well-earned lunch break. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. That brings session 1 to an end. Now we will move to the National Assembly main building for lunch. But on our way there, we will take a group photo outside. So let's gather in front of the seminar room so we can head out together. And you can follow the person holding the flag, okay?